We're live now. Great. Good evening. Welcome to the London Buddhist Centre. My name's Prajnadevi. I'm here with Prajnadevi, Jahit and Paul. We've been exploring the Wheel of Life. So last week and this week we'll be exploring the Wheel of Life. So that's what we'll be doing. But do just arrive and settle down. It's always really nice if you put in chat your name and where you're logging in from, and we'll do that for the next sort of four or so minutes, and then begin the class. Although we have started, of course. So yeah, I'll just wait to hear from anyone who cares to post. Maybe I'll say something in the meantime. I don't know what. So I'm really looking forward to the talk tonight from Prajnadevi. Which I very much enjoyed last week's class, and I very much enjoyed how she answered the questions. I'm looking forward to hearing what she's got to say about the Wheel of Life.
Teresa from Sweden.
Sorry, who's that? Teresa from Sweden.
In Sweden, yeah.
Oh wow, amazing. Do you know any Swedish, Prajnadevi? No Swedish. It'd be nice to say good evening in Swedish to you, but we can't. But good evening. It's nice that you're here. I hope you enjoy the class. I don't know much about Sweden. I've read some Swedish crime fiction. That's about as good as it gets, I think. ABBA. Oh yeah. Yeah, love ABBA. There must be much more to Sweden than that. Freddie Lindbergh. Oh. Good. Which reminds me a little bit of the Tony Hancock sketch, the Radio Ham, where he starts off by asking, "What's the weather like wherever he's talking to? Like, what's the weather like in Tokyo? Rainy." Yeah. Anyway. What's the weather like in Sweden? Prajnadevi wants to know. What's it? I imagine it's cold, but rather nice. Yeah.
Everyone's quite silent.
Are there many people tuning in?
10
people.
So we've got Sophie from Hackney.
Hi, Sophie from Hackney. I recognise Sophie from Hackney. I'm sure Sophie tunes into quite a lot. I kind of probably can guess what the weather likes in Hackney. It's probably quite similar to Bethnal Green. But welcome. It's quite exciting watching Jaya and Paul trying to decipher. It's like a quiz show when people what they're doing, they're kind of conversing about what the answer might be. Anyway. Couple more minutes.
It's raining in Sweden.
So it's raining in Sweden. Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, raining. It's raining. Is it raining here now? It has been raining a lot, but
Today was a dry day though.
was it? Okay. So Teresa, today is pretty dry in Bethnal Green. You might be interested to know that. It's pretty dry. We do have centres in Sweden. We have a few. I was ordained with somebody from Sweden, from the north of Sweden. Good. Very nice to have Paul here to say that. Paul helps me do the cleaning on Monday morning, so he's stepping live into the filming.
It's good to be here.
Good. Paul says it's good to be here. It's good to be here. Okay, let's start. It's 7:00. So I'll just explain a bit of the format for the evening. So we'll finish at 8:30. So We'll have a short meditation for that first 20 minutes just to settle. And then I'll hand on to Prajnadevi, who'll carry on talking about the Wheel of Life for about 20 minutes, maybe 20-25 minutes, however long she chooses to talk. We'll have a short break, say 5-minute break probably. Then Prajnadevi will lead us in a led meditation, possibly around the theme of her talk. And then we'll finish with about 15 minutes questions and answers. So you can just post your questions into chat, and Jai and Paul will pick them up and relay them to us, and we'll do our best to answer them. So that's the evening. Just to recap from last week, I think my talk last week was based on a talk or lecture by Sangharakshita, who founded Triratna, describing the Wheel of Life, which is very traditional Indian and then Tibetan symbolism, or symbol of the nature of conditioned existence, but also from that ways to progress or to move or to grow. So I was talking about that, and he talks about it in terms of a mirror. So you look at the image. You might need to Google image somewhere. Just look at the image, and there's concentric circles, and each time you look, you see an aspect of yourself. So you can catch up on that talk if you want on YouTube. But as I was talking, and as we were answering the questions last week, I was so struck by how rich the Wheel of Life is. It's an incredibly vivid and interesting and even exciting image to explore, which is one of the reasons I'm excited about tonight's talk, actually, just to kind of go into it a little bit further. So that's the Tibetan Wheel of Life. I think I won't say any more than that. I think let's settle ourselves into our meditation posture, and we'll have about a 15-minute meditation just to arrive and prepare ourselves for the rest of the evening. I think we'll keep it simple. So we'll do. I'll lead us into a body scan, and then into a short period of the mindfulness of breathing. So beginning by taking enough time to settle. Maybe even enjoy the process of settling down, so being aware of the noises around us. And the feel of the air on our skins. And the contact with the ground. Allowing the weight of the body to settle onto the chair or the cushion, stool, whatever you're sitting on. So surrendering the weight of the body. Noticing the sensations in the feet. The lower legs. Upper legs. And the pelvis, the groin area. Bringing attention to the back. And the shoulders. The arms. And to the sensations in the hands. Relaxing the stomach. And the chest. The neck and throat. Back of the head and the top of the head. And softening around the eyes, cheeks, tongue, mouth. And when you're ready, beginning to pay attention to the breath, just as it is. Being with the breath. you want, you can mark the end of the out breath with a number up to 10. Otherwise, just following the breath as it enters and leaves the body. If you've been counting after the out-breath, you might want to switch to counting before the in-breath. for the last few minutes, just letting go of any effort. And just sitting. Good, so the lights will come up and I'll hand you over to Prajnadevi.
Thanks, Yanadaya. That was a nice start to the evening. Nice short sit. Yeah, last week we talked about the Wheel of Life, when Yanadaya talked about how it mirrors us. And I just wanted to give you a bit more of a general description of the Wheel of Life. You may have an image of it, or you may even know what it looks like. But if you don't, I just want to give you a little description of it. So first of all, it's a wheel, it's an imagery, it's an image. It's actually an image of human existence. It's an image of the human condition, if you like. And the Buddha had this image. So it's actually an image of the human condition from an enlightened one's point of view. So he could see this is what human life is like. So we see a wheel full of figures, and it's clutched by this seeming like monster. It's Yama, the Lord of Death. And he's having this wheel in his clutches. It actually means that in our human life, while we are going round and round this wheel, because it is a wheel, so it goes round and round, we are in the clutches of Yama, we are in the clutches of death. We are in the clutches of just going round and round, being born, living our life, dying, being reborn. But even if you don't believe in rebirth, doesn't matter. This image still has a lot to teach you, or a lot to show you. Because it also shows our psychological states. It shows how we can live a life of reactivity, where we just kind of mindlessly go from one thing to the other, driven by very basic needs, desires, or we can have a life where we are more creative in response to what happens to us, which will then actually lead to a different outcome. So the wheel of life, the wheel is really driven by ignorance. ignorance is really at the hub. Ignorance and hatred or aversion and desire or craving. So it's either we live in a state of not knowing, just not really knowing, living in the dark. We're groping in the dark, really, throughout our lives. And we can just be driven by likes and dislikes. We like things, we want more of it. We dislike things, we don't want it. So very basically, that's a life of reactivity. That's how we can live our lives. And that's a particular conditioning. The more we live in that way, the more we kind of deepen those grooves and live more like that. Now the wheel also shows different states of mind. So in the center we have the ignorance, craving and aversion. And around that we have two sort of half circles where we see figures in the light, in the white segment, that are going up to the light, looking kind of happy, delighted. And there's the other half, which is in the dark, where we see figures just tumbling down, looking pretty miserable or petrified, or both. And either of these is a result of living a life that is a reactive life, where we're just driven by our base emotions, basic forces, or we have a life where we can respond more creatively, learn from from our mistakes, learn from what's happening to us, and respond in a more creative way. So the circle around that, we'll see 6 segments that really depict states of mind. We have the human realm, where there's just human beings like us. But we also have the hell realm, where people are suffering a lot, and it's hard to get out of a hell realm. We have the Asuras, the sort of people who will do anything to be the best, get to the top and win, and will sacrifice other people in order for them to get to that point. And then we have a realm of the hungry ghosts, where they're depicted as figures with very small mouths and very large bellies. Like they have a sort of hunger or that they can never satisfy. And you might be able to relate to that sometimes, where you just feel you're looking for something, you're longing for something. You might get more into eating or some addictive substance to fill that hole somewhere, and none of it actually satisfies. So hungry ghosts depict that state of mind where we're looking for satisfaction outside ourselves to nourish us, to kind of fill that gaping hole. We also have the animal realm, where we're just driven by need for food, for sex, for sleep, those 3 things. And of course that is, as human beings, what we also share with animals. But we have more refined qualities and more abilities than that as well. So every realm has a little Buddha figure in it that holds an implement that is like the key. So not only is this Wheel of Life a depiction of human life, human existence, it also gives us a clue about how we can get off this wheel of endless going round and round. For instance, in the Asura's realm, where people are wanting to get to the top, there's a Buddha brandishing a sword. And it's a sword to actually cut through that kind of ignorance. And it's a sword because that's what people who are in that sort of frame of mind will respond to. Say in the realm of the gods, where people have a lovely life and everything's hunky-dory and fine, the Buddha just plays a lute, little tune of impermanence, just letting them know it's not going to last. But to play a lute in the realm of the Asheras, for instance, is not really, it's not that kind of music. So the Buddha has this amazing ability to speak or connect with anyone on their level, on their terms. So he has sort of something to show you that you can understand. So in different realms, different implements, different. So he shows you something. The animal realm, he shows the Dharma, the book, education, culture will sort of help you arise, find finer things in life, find there's more beyond just sleeping, eating, having sex. So that's just a little description of the 6 realms. Don't want to go into them all too much tonight, because I want to get to the outer rim, actually, of the wheel, where we see in some detail how this all comes about, how we go around the wheel, how things just, how we as human beings are born, get through life, and we're becoming, and at the end we're dying again. But you can also see it as something that's in every moment of our mind, this whole circle, where we there's something we see, we respond to it like we want it or we don't want it. A bit what I said earlier about like, dislike. We want it more, we want to keep it. If we don't want it, we hate it, we really don't want it, we want to keep it out. And this particular action is what keeps us going round the wheel. It's what keeps us in a way bound. It's what stops us from being free. Like Yama, the Lord of Death, who holds this wheel, in a way he's like a restraint on our freedom. He's in a way what stops us from being free. He's like, as long as we're in his clutches, we are not free. So how can we be free? How can this image of the Wheel of Life that shows us ourselves in different states of mind, how can we be free of this going round and round the wheel? Because that's also in the Wheel of Life. There are possibilities in here. It's not a negative image. It's a sort of quite realistic image of, well, this is just how it is, guys. We're just on a merry-go-round, and the only way we can stop this merry-go-round is to actually find somewhere to get out. Now that somewhere is quite specific. So in the outer rim of the wheel, we can see how we become, how initially there's ignorance, what follows is formation. I won't go into all these details too much, but we get to the point where we have a body, we have 6 senses, mind being one of our senses. With these 6 senses we perceive and we get into contact with thoughts, objects, ideas. And here's the interesting thing, so we can start to feel things, say, to keep it on a sort of very basic level, chocolate, if you're into chocolate, ice cream, whatever you're into. If you think of chocolate, you think, oh nice, want it, want more of it, and eat too much of it, for instance. We've already lost that moment where we might have just had a space of saying, well, do I really want this? Do I really need this? Is there maybe something else I could do to satisfy this craving in me, the sugar craving for comfort? So the gap in the wheel is really between the points of contact and craving. So contacting something and wanting it. It's a very interesting one because it happens all the time. It happens in our thoughts. We can have We can crave, well actually we crave for existence in the first place. When we, on the Wheel of Life, that's our first craving. But we're craving for all sorts of things. We're craving for experience, actually. It's very difficult for us to just sit with our mind, just as we meditate, and just not let thoughts take hold of us, because in a way we're always at the mercy of our mind. Our mind is always kind of throwing up entertainment, interesting thoughts, things to work out, little planning events, or memories, going back memory lane. So there's always something in our mind that will throw up something for us to engage with. And while we do that, while we are in that sort of more reactive mode, we can miss a moment where we can actually have real clarity in our mind. Just stop for a moment. That's where we can stop the wheel for a moment. It's about finding out where we get hooked, what hooks us. And that's different for all of us, but we have a lot of things in common, of course. So, where do we get hooked on things? For instance, if, and this also goes for aversion, if you don't like somebody, like this person, it might be a colleague, maybe someone, a relative, whoever, you see this person, you don't like them. You start to dwell on the things, why you don't like him. And this kind of strengthens our opinion of him. It fixes our mind in a particular way. We haven't really stopped to think, well, actually, is there something else here? Is this all there is? We can get quite fixed. And that's what we do with our mind when we have something to fix on. We get slightly tunnel vision. It's very hard to keep an open mind when we have fixed ideas or when we have fixed outcomes. So if we don't like somebody or something, our mind will often very helpfully throw up all sorts of scenarios or memories where, similar things happened. Things we didn't like, people we didn't like, what they did to us, and feel bad about it. If we get into that state of mind, we're very much in that sort of dark segment of the wheel where we're sort of tumbling down, feeling a bit miserable, because it's not really getting us anywhere. We have two different kinds of conditioning that we can have. We have reactive conditioning, where we just react, don't like, push away, want more, want to hold on to it, which also causes pain at some point because we can't hold on to things. And we have creative conditioning, where we can learn from our experience and act differently. So in a way, be more creative in terms of how we respond to what happens to us. I think at the moment with the whole COVID situation and lockdown, I think we can really, it can be very difficult, it has been very difficult for many of us, and not so easy perhaps to respond creatively to the situation we find ourselves in. Here we are in a situation where we don't feel very free because we're restricted in what we can do or where we can go. But of course, in our mind, we can be free. We can say, okay, this is how it is. Now, what can I do? How can I respond positively or in a helpful way in this situation? How can I make it work for myself and others? So there's ways to work, to respond to situations in life that life throws at us that will help us actually rise above it, that will help us become more positive, that will help us not become a victim of what happens to us in life. So we have these options. we have these choices. So we cannot choose what we feel in terms of six senses contact. We cannot choose what we feel. We may feel miserable, we may feel happy, may feel in love or in hate, but we can choose what we do with it. And this is where the little gap in the wheel is. So even though we may not be able to influence what we feel, because what we feel is what we feel, isn't it? Yes. But then that's not necessarily then a license to act out or act on it. I think that's where the thinking gets a bit wonky. So we can respond to our particular feelings. We can respond in a way that helps us and to be more positive in our response, more kind, more helpful actually to ourselves, to others. That's a choice we have every moment of the day. To be kinder to ourselves, to be more forgiving, and maybe less judgmental. We have that choice always. We can forget, because we can be very conditioned to that being our response. But actually, we always have a choice. And that's really good to remember that. Because that is where the gap in the wheel is. That is where we can get out of reactive mode into more creative mode, where we can be freer, basically. This is where freedom starts to bloom. We can be freer if we can respond creatively to situations in our lives. Rather than be the victim or be subject to what happens and feel we're a victim to it or it's happening to us. So there's a sense of agency here. There's a sense of, this is in my hands. Well, some things are not in my hands, but then within that, there are things I can do. I can respond to it. So now we're in a lockdown. I can't go and visit people. I can get really miserable about this and thinking I've not had a holiday all year, blah, blah, blah. We have all sorts of things that we can feel upset about. But what can we do within that range to help ourselves and help others and not get too stuck in our own thought processes that in a way weigh us down. So the Wheel of Life is that depiction of human existence. We can respond with kindness and compassion, understanding, or at least give people the benefit of the doubt. Or we can be quite judgmental, critical, angry about what happens to us. Or often it's a mixture. We're not just one or the other. So how can we be more positive, happier, actually, human beings? We're all subject to the same things as human beings. We're all in the same boat. There's no escape from that. We're all going to get older. Well, some of us don't get very old. And we'll all die at the end. That's a given. We know that. But we have the space in between where we can be creative with our lives. What can we do? How can we apply ourselves? How can we be freer from a mind that will try and fix us? It's often a sense of insecurity, isn't it, that sort of takes us there. A sense of insecurity, lack of confidence, that then makes us more critical, more judgmental of ourselves and of others. In a way, it's a lack of confidence. But if we can come back to how we feel in this very moment, actually back to our body, back to what's actually going on, we can actually really feel our experience. We can maybe quieten down that chatter, that sort of story line, that sort of narrative that we have about what happens to us. It's almost like a stilling. And we can do this any time during the day, but in meditation it's in a way easier to do this because we just sit quietly, we close our eyes, and then thoughts start coming up that will engage our mind in one way or another. And this is where we can sort of see, like, where do I get hooked? Where do I get pulled to? And when I notice that, I kind of think, well, hang on a sec. I'm just sitting here, just breathing, just being with my experience. So not to get pulled so much by whatever our mind throws at us. It's a bit of a practice. Well, it's a lifelong practice, actually. But I would say it's very rewarding to do that. And in the meditation practice that we'll do later, we'll just have a look at that, how we can sort of keep coming back to our actual experience and unhook ourselves from thoughts, ideas that in a way are not helpful and are not really going anywhere. So the Wheel of Life gives us that image of what human existence is like when we don't live creatively, when we just live from one thing to the next and we're sort of at the mercy of our emotions, or what human life can be when we can learn from our experience and become more creative, become more compassionate, kinder, and respond in that way to ourselves and to the world around us. So that's really a little picture of the Wheel of Life. And then beyond that is the spiral path. So when I say we have conditioning that is reactive, that's the Wheel of Life. But conditioning that is more creative will lead us to the spiral path, which is a path of development, spiritual development, where we can just learn and grow. So it's stagnation versus growth. It's reactivity versus creativity. And these are the choices we have in life, every day. These are the choices, and what do we choose? And how do we not get hooked on particular habits, strong negative emotions that keep pulling us down and down the same track that is very familiar to us, but also because it's familiar, we kind of feel easy in it in a certain way. And growth or acting differently is kind of a bit scary because, you can't really hold such fixed opinions or fixed views that make us feel secure. Because in a way, you're kind of opening yourself up to something that you don't really know what's there. What's here? We can ask ourselves, what is actually here? Rather than what we think is here, or our running commentary about what our experience is. What is really happening? So that is the practice that we'll be doing after the little break. This is a little commentary on the Wheel of Life, what it is and how we can learn from it. And just to say that the Buddha, of course, in his day, there was no written word. There was just oral tradition or imagery. So can you imagine a world without a written word? It's quite extraordinary. Just that you would just have imagery, very rich imagery, and you can learn from that. It's quite extraordinary. So the Wheel of Life was very relevant then, 2,500 years ago. It's still very relevant now, totally relevant now. So that's how we know it's a totally timeless and therefore true depiction of the human condition and its way out. It's a mirror, but it also gives us the clue in how we can step through that mirror into a freer life. Okay, That's all I want to say. We'll have a 5-minute break. So we'll be back, in 5 minutes, obviously. We'll do a guided meditation, just based on what I've just been talking about. And at the end of that, we'll have a session of questions and answers. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box, and Yanadaya and I will do our best to see if we can help you figure it out. Okay? See you in a bit. Okay, so if you're all back, going to have a session of meditation, so just set yourself up well, take your time to do so. Make sure you're comfortable. So just arriving in your body, just on your seat, or if you're lying down on the floor, and close your eyes. Just giving your weight to the earth. So your spine is upright, natural. And your head poised on top of your neck. Your face soft. Your belly soft. Just breathing in and breathing out. And already as you breathe in and out, just have a sense of where in your body you feel there's a certain tightness or holding. So as you breathe in and breathe out, just noticing where in your body it feels a bit held, maybe a bit disconnected. Which parts of you are not quite with you? And also as you breathe in and out, just notice which parts are. Maybe areas that are warm or feel open. You feel connected to. So everything in life is about connecting and connection. When we dislike or have an aversion or hatred of anything or anybody, part of us shuts off, shuts down. But when we can feel love, liking, kindness, something in us opens up to connect. So we're just going to do a meditation where we just sit with our experience, whatever it is. Can't do it wrong, can't do it right, doesn't matter. Whatever is there. We have our body as our home, our base, supported by the earth. And we have our breath as an anchor, to anchor us in that experience in our body. So just being with our experience and then noticing where our mind takes us. And then when we notice where our mind takes us, just come back to the body, come back to your breath. So we're just going to do that for a while. Just see where we get hooked, what takes us away. And as soon as we notice, we just calmly and gently return to our body and connect with our breath to anchor us. Just being with ourselves and noticing what takes us away. And keep coming back to just sitting here. Unhooking from any thoughts and ideas and plans that take us away from just being here. Now see if you can notice in your body, or even in your mind, if anything closes down or opens up with thoughts that arise. So getting a sense of something closing or getting a bit dull, or opening up, becoming brighter. So staying alert and keep noticing what takes you away, and is there a response in your body or mind of closing or opening, softening or hardening. And keep coming back to your breath and your body with kindness. Just being here. What is here? Can we have an open mind to what is here? Without grasping or fixing anything. we keep noticing what takes us away. What kind of thought takes us away? Just being with our breath, this body sitting here, this moment, and this experience. Noticing how your body responds to thoughts you may have. It can be very subtle. And keep bringing ourselves back kindly and swiftly, just to being here. Just noticing what kind of thoughts, feelings take you away from being present with yourself. coming out of that meditation. We'll have a bit of time for questions and answers. We certainly have time for questions. I'm not sure that we can answer them all, but we'll do our best, won't we, Nyanadaya? So Nyanadaya is going to join me. And if you have anything you want to ask, then put it in the chat box, and look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Prajnadevi.
So it says, thank you for the lovely meditation.
You're welcome. Glad it was good.
So far, no questions.
Well, maybe I was just so clear and talking about the Wheel of Life that there are no questions.
I think the question while we're working.
Go on then.
I don't know. Maybe I haven't exactly got a question, but I definitely liked how you made it very practical, the talk, didn't you? You sort of brought it down to what we can do in our everyday lives to kind of create these moments of creativity, and it's fairly straightforward, isn't it? In a sense, that's quite straightforward in theory.
Very straightforward.
So hard to do, but
yeah.
yeah.
Need to move a bit closer.
Go on.
Come just a bit, yeah.
He's out of the picture.
Good.
So there's a question here.
Go on.
It says, that's from Oliver Mattis. What if craving pertains to a basic physiological need, example, sex, hunger, thirst, sleep, etc.? Is this still undesirable?
Well, I would say craving in itself is, by definition, undesirable. We can have a desire for something, or a longing, or a need for something, but as soon as it turns into craving, it becomes something slightly different. But I understand the feeling. So there's in itself nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with anything. It's more to see how our minds work, how we can have, if we have a desire for something, for food, I'm hungry, or if I have a craving for food, I might choose the kind of food that is not necessarily best for me. See the difference? That's kind of the difference between a desire or a need for something and a craving for it. Craving is stronger. Craving is strong that it's hard to not have it, whatever you're craving. Does that kind of answer your question, Oliver?
Could you repeat the question?
So it basically says, what if craving pertains to a basic physiological need, example, sex, hunger, thirst, sleep, etc.? Is this still undesirable?
Okay, so just to repeat it in case people can't hear it, so whether, I'm sure we got the gist of it, but if craving relates to a physiological need such as sleep, sex, hunger, thirst, is it still undesirable? You sort of answer, it's not going to be, of course it's desirable to drink if you're thirsty, for example.
There's something in the question that doesn't quite add up. It's not whether it's desirable or undesirable, it just is. It's not that it's good or bad. That's not what this is about. That's not what Buddhism is about.
Well, it says anyway, thank you very much. Yes, it does.
Clinched it.
Right. Mm.
Yeah, it's a good thing we have, needs and desires and things we need, like food and sustenance and sex and sleep. Of course. If we didn't feel that, we wouldn't last very long, would we?
Anyway, he's asking another question.
Another question from Oliver.
So,
Go on then.
also, what is the easiest and or best ways to get off the wheel and onto the spiral?
The easiest and best way to get off the wheel and onto the spiral path. There is not really such a thing as a fast track here, I'm afraid, Oliver. Well, some people, in the old scriptures of the Buddha, you get these, you do get these people who just hear a word or a phrase or a teaching, and suddenly, ta-da, they're off the wheel and onto the, well, not even spiral path. They're enlightened. But generally, I would say it is a matter of practice. We just need to apply ourselves diligently every day. And there are particular moments when, a moment of death is one of them, which I didn't mention, but the moment of death is a moment when we can, in a way, theoretically, choose not to be reborn or be free. Now, I have no memory of it myself, so I don't really know, but that's what the teaching says. But I think it's more satisfying somehow to know that by your own choices and actions, you can be different. You can grow rather than be the same all the time. And I think that is the way out, really. It starts with small things, mostly.
I think there's something to be said as well for sometimes it's easier than other times, isn't it? I think to make the creative choices. So what sort of conditions we put ourselves in or what sort of conditions we create might make it easier to make a more creative choice. So that would include living ethically. I guess we're drunk, for example. It's easy to make bad choices or all sorts of ways. That's a very gross example of it. There's all sorts of different ways in which we can help ourselves by the way we live in order to be able to seize that gap that you were talking about.
True. We can create very positive conditions for ourselves and more positive conditions by having good friends who support us in our growth and living ethically. Absolutely.
There's another question. Mercer, I think her name is, or his name, and it says, what is the Buddha pointing at in the Wheel of Life? Is that the moon? If so, what does it symbolise?
Go on, Yanataya.
I talked about it last week,
yes,
but I can't quite remember. The Buddha's pointing. I think the Buddha maybe is pointing the way.
Hair in the moon, isn't it?
Yes, a hair in the moon. So actually, it's very common within Chinese. I think it's a Chinese sort of symbol that it's a in China they'll talk about the hair in the moon rather than the man on the moon. But it goes back to a Jataka story, like a traditional sort of tale of the Buddha's previous lives, where he was once a hare and a guest came and there was no food, so the hare sacrificed him or herself in order to show hospitality and to feed the guests, and the guest turned out to be a king and restored the hare's life, etc., etc. But it's a symbol for that spirit of generosity and not just the bodhisattva ideal. So that's what the hare in the moon is, and I can't quite remember what the Buddha's pointing at, but I imagine enlightenment or the way.
Well, the Buddha is pointing, and he can only point because in a way he can't really get you there. That is really down to ourselves. That much is clear. He can sort of show you the way, he can describe it, but really we have to do it ourselves. He's no saviour in that way.
Okay, there's Nina Allen I'm sorry, not really on topic. Curious to hear more about thought as one of the senses, especially less passive aspect.
Curious to hear more about fault as one of the senses.
Thought.
Sorry. Thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, thought is like the most interesting one in a way because it's happening all the time. Can't really switch off. Mind is really one of our senses, not so much thought. So thought is more a product of mind. Mind is one of the 6 senses. And thoughts are what sort of occur, which is thrown up by the mind. Mind itself is vaster than that, of course. And when it's more refined, there will be less thought, or no thought even. But where we're at, you and me and everybody else here, thought is very much what is kind of getting in the way of seeing things more clearly. But it can also help us to get somewhere. So, so thought is not so much the sense, but the mind is. I hope that helps, Nina.
If I can
You can come
jump in. Yeah, it's so the mind's it's one of the senses. So it would be equivalent to say your eyesight. So your eye would be like the mind, and what you see would be the object of the mind. So we have the mind, and we have thoughts being the object of the mind, and so as we can grasp onto something we see or push it away, so we can do the same with our thoughts as well. So we might have a thought arise during meditation, for example, as you were describing. We just want to really reverse. We want to push it away, or it's a nice thought. We want to kind of grasp it again. So again, it's another and something else which we can either grasp or push away, and we're trying to do something a bit different, maybe be with it and then choose something different.
But thoughts can be creative as well, can't they? So it's great.
Another question. Demi Bob, what is the last word of Buddha? May I know what he said?
What, in Sanskrit? What are the last words of the Buddha?
Well, I think that's what she's. What is the last word of Buddha? Yeah.
Well, when the Buddha died, he actually admonished. He said, "Be a light, to be a lamp unto yourself." Those were his last words. So again, he's just saying, it's up to you. It's down to you. Be your own light. Illuminate yourself. That was his last message.
I've got nothing.
Thank you.
Oh, good. I tell you what came to mind was in your talk that I liked the point you made about how in each realm, like the loot in the God realm would be useless in the realm of the Asuras. I thought I hadn't thought of it like that before. And how the Buddha was very, very good at being able to address each person's individual needs, and that's such a skill, isn't it, to be able to
Absolutely.
do that.
And can speak to anyone, wherever you are, in a way that would connect you. I think that's really the message in that imagery. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've come to the end of our
Yeah.
evening.
Shall I say something about what's coming up?
Oh, yes.
Yep. So this is the last of the purely online Tuesday classes. So next Tuesday we'll be having a streamed class, but also a live class. So you'll be able to book if you want to. If you're around, if you're not in Sweden, for example, you might be able to come to the centre. So you need to book for that, but there'll be a Tuesday in-person class. And next week there'll also be a Friday in-person class, which won't be streamed actually, which will be more, there'll be a ritual in that and a bit more meditation.
You need to book for them, don't you?
You need to book, yeah. So you can go on, I think, the London Buddhist Centre online and book those. And then shall I make a short dana appeal?
Yep.
So, so everything we do here we do because we like to do it and we can do it, but we can only really do it with your support and with everybody's support. So if you can donate something to help the London Buddhist Centre keep going at this time, it's a very difficult time for everybody. It's a difficult time for us as well. We're not kind of bringing in the revenue that we used to. So if you could donate, we'd really appreciate that. And I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thank you all for being here tonight. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
thank you. Thanks, Prajnadevi.
Thank you.